How's it going, everybody? I'm Burrhead2, and welcome to another B2 review. Yeah, the name still kinda stinks, but it still sounds nice. But never mind that, we have more pressing issues to attend to, like, for example, reviewing Luigi's Mansion 3, one of my personal favorite games. If you can't tell, I kinda really love this game. But anyway, let's actually start reviewing the game. But before we start that, I should probably explain how my reviews work. I choose 10 categories that I believe best represent the game, and score them from 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, and 5 being meh. Not good or bad, but not bad or good. So a game with a score of 50 out of 100 would just be meh. So now we can move on to the first category, graphics. I'm going to be honest with you here. Luigi's Mansion 3 is probably the best looking Nintendo published game up to this point. The poly count for the models are pretty high as far as I can tell. I'm definitely not a professional, and the textures are really high quality. The developers definitely knew how to get as much power out of the Switch as possible, and still have the whole thing run perfectly. They definitely knew what they were doing, not to mention the amount of detail on even the smallest things. But now I'm getting all fanboyish. The only way to get across exactly how good this game looks is to actually, look at it. Let's just say I think graphics is deserving of a 10 out of 10. Like, that's just not fun, okay? That's just not fun.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. But the main reason why I really...
Oh yeah.
Alrighty-o, next category, music. I think that Luigi's Mansion 3's soundtrack might suffer from Alzheimer's, because it's very forgettable. But that doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Luigi's Mansion 3 has a very good soundtrack, but like I said, it's very forgettable. This could be for a few reasons, from the songs themselves to the fact that just a tad too quiet. While an option to adjust the music volume would have been nice, we got the next best thing, a music player. Now you can listen to those forgettable songs anywhere, anytime. And once you actually sit down and listen to them, hey, that's not bad. Wait, that's actually pretty good. No, that slaps. But while the songs could theoretically be better, maybe sometimes quantity wins out over quality. You don't like Floor 6's medieval music? Maybe Floor 4's softer piano music will strike a chord. No? Well, how about the mystical music on Floor 11? Still no? How about Basement 2's music that sounds like it was taken directly from Billy Bob's front porch? Hopefully you're picking up on what I'm laying down, but if you're not, allow me to explain. If you throw enough stuff at the wall, something's bound to stick in your head. But there's one thing I want to touch on briefly. Scarescraper. Scarescraper's songs are okay in a vacuum, but we all know what exists in a vacuum. Nothing. Given the repetitive nature of Scarescraper, the songs start to make me feel a wee bit like a block of cheese. Now that I've mentioned Scarescraper, I should probably mention Scream Park. It's actually pretty good. All in all, I'd say 9 out of 10 is good enough, but it's right on the edge of 10.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Next up, gameplay. Luigi's main moveset of dark lighting, flashing, bursting, suction shotting, and slamming are, in and of themselves, not extremely interesting. But it's the context in which they are used that make it interesting. Because of this, puzzles are a lot more hands-on and interactive, and ghost catching is a lot more action-packed. Of course, you can't forget about Gooigi. Gooigi can do everything that Luigi can, but with the ability to go through grates and gates and regenerate health, at the expense of dying to water and fire instantly and having only a quarter of the health. Having a second Luigi with his own pros and cons adds to the potential depth of puzzles, which the game does take advantage of. There are a few one-off mechanics here and there, but for 95% of the game, you'll just be using Luigi's base moveset. I do want to take a moment here to mention how much I dislike the boos in this game. Their inclusion feels like the devs were going through a checklist near the end of development, realizing they forgot to add the boos, and then go around the office telling everyone they forgot the boos, and they were done within the week. They don't feel ingrained in the game, as if they were added at the end of development. Let's just give gameplay an 8 out of 10. Floor 8.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh. Oh yeah.
Next, let's score how the levels are designed. I'd say, all in all, the level design is pretty good, if not a bit linear, especially towards the end of the game. While the level design is somewhat varied, it can be broken down into two groups, traveling down a path to reach the boss, with minor deviations here and there, and solving a few puzzles to reach the boss. Boiling it down, the level design is pretty simple, but sometimes having a few spices is nice. However, sometimes the level design is atrocious. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying it's, wow, look at this cool concept we came up with. Now let's barely do anything with it. Just look at floor 9 and 14. There was so much more they could have done. But I'm not talking about what isn't there, but what is. And what is there does its job. It's not exactly going to win any awards, but hey, 7 out of 10.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah.
But the original Luigi's Mansion, on the other hand, oh boy, that game. Oh boy, there is so much. But what's a good level without a good boss? The bosses in this game are somewhat mediocre. They don't have the grand aura that I'd personally like to see in a boss fight. They just feel like a larger ghost with more health that is a bit trickier to defeat. This does somewhat tie into another issue I have with the game, but I digress. They aren't very grand, they aren't very hard, and they don't feel like an ultimate test of everything I've learned thus far. Some even have one-off mechanics, which is fine, but boss fights shouldn't be the place to put them. As far as I can tell, generally the best boss fights test you on mechanics more specific to that part of the game, although that's more of an issue I have with game design in general. However, the bigger bosses are a lot better. These guys mostly fix the grandness and somewhat fix the difficulty issues, but they still have one-off mechanics, but that doesn't make any of the bosses less fun or unique, which all of them are. And if they're fun and at least bearable, who cares? 8 out of 10. Floor 8.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh. Oh yeah.
But didn't I say they're not very hard? Oh dear, this category isn't going to be fun. Let's be real here. The game is way too easy, parts are easy to find, and there aren't enough ghosts to make it actually challenging. And once the game starts throwing a good amount of ghosts at you, you're in the last sixth of the game. It could be that I'm an expert gamer, or the game's too easy. Guess which? 3 out of 10.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh. Oh yeah.
When it comes to having only one player, difficulty is easy to balance. When it comes to single-player content, there's a few things you can do, like finding gems. For me, the more obtuse ones are more enjoyable. You can also catch all the boos, which do have an actual purpose. The more boos you capture, the longer your slam meter lasts. Luigi's Mansion 3 even has achievements, for better or worse, and sometimes when on a floor you've already beaten, more ghosts will appear. Now, these ghosts don't make those spooky purple door blocker things appear, so they're more of a bonus challenge. Not a whole lot, but there's certainly something there, if not a bit light. 7 out of 10.
Oh yeah. Ha ha. Yeah.
But the original Luigi's Mansion, on the other hand, oh boy, that game. Oh boy, there is so much. But when it comes to having more than one, things get a bit tricky. Luigi's Mansion 3 has a whole host of multiplayer options, and they're pretty fun too. Let's start with Story Mode Co-op. I have actually played throughout the entire campaign in co-op, and no, it wasn't just me and the controller, it was me and another physical person. In short, it's just the main game, but with 2 Luigis. That should be pretty obvious, right? I do, however, want to point out the fact that the game works perfectly in single player and co-op. What I mean by that is that the game doesn't feel like it was made for one player with another player shoehorned in, or like a co-op only game with cumbersome single player controls. It works seamlessly, and that's honestly pretty impressive. But then there's Scare-Scraper, the online co-op mode, and boy, do I have some opinions. My main beef is the fact it can get repetitive. My, oh my, is it repetitive. For maybe 30 minutes straight, you'll be catching ghosts and listening to the same songs ad nauseum. Then maybe, just maybe, you'll get a different objective, like collecting money, finding toads, or defeating crows, which usually involve catching ghosts in the process. Every 5 floors, some boss ghosts will appear, which does break up the monotony, even though it's still catching ghosts. And you're gonna be seeing the exact same things over and over again too. Wearing one of the DLC outfits can help this though, because occasionally the next floor will be based on your costume's theme. So at least you'll see and hear something different, but you'll still be catching ghosts most of the time. And don't even get me started on those team switch things that require everyone and everyone's Luigi to stand on them. Every time I see one, I die a bit inside. It's a fun time though. You can even play co-op. But I've yet to even mention Scream Park. Scream Park is honestly a pretty good time, although it's unfortunate it's local multiplayer only because it would be pretty fun online, but maybe a local multiplayer only mode every now and again is nice. Scream Park sees Team Luigi and Team Gooigi, up to 4 players both, duke it out in a minigame. There are 9 games total, 6 of which are DLC exclusive. They're all really fun, honestly, even if the base 3 seem a bit light in comparison. So if you've got some friends coming over and some Joy-Cons to spare, Scream Park is a good choice. Plus, it's the closest thing we're ever going to get to an official Luigi party. All in all, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Floor 8.
Oh, yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, a one and done deal isn't very fun. Is there really any incentive to play the game again after you've finished it? Outside of the multiplayer modes, the only reason to play it again is if you want to experience it again, which, well, is kind of every game in existence. But speaking purely from a single player point of view, that is the only reason you'd want to play it again. Well, unless you want to go through all of it again to see how much money you can collect, which, to be fair, isn't a bad idea. The money collecting is pretty fun, but that's beside the point. The main story is light on replayability, but it's mostly carried by the multiplayer modes. So that all culminates into a solid 7 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Ha ha. Yeah.
But the original Luigi's Mansion, on the other hand, oh boy, that game. Oh boy, there is so much. But none of this matters if the game is a buggy mess. When it comes to being a polished experience, Luigi's Mansion 3 is a bit of a mess. Stiff animations, repeated textures, seeing through things, and just in general jank. It's all just a bit of a mess. When it comes to the gameplay, however, it's fine. But it's just the amount of small things that really add up. People have tried seeing these things, so why aren't they fixed? Not to mention the fact that money has a tendency to fall out of bounds or get stuck in walls. But hey, at least they have lip syncing, for better or worse. Of course, the game is perfectly playable, yes, but when it comes to a Nintendo game, the quality feels way off. Unfortunately, this category is gonna get a 3 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. Ha ha. Yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah.
So we're finally done. So before we get to the final score, here's a quick recap of the scores. And the grand total is 69 out of 100. Honestly, that's surprisingly low for how much I love this game, but there are definitely some glaring issues like the difficulty and polish. But hey, at least it looks good and sounds good. As for any closing thoughts, I say some of the animation is pretty stiff. And for a game as expertly animated as this, it doesn't look right. But a 69 out of 100 is not bad. Not bad at all. But that's not going to stop me from loving this game. Anywho, it's time I end the video, so I wish you good luck in whatever your endeavors may be, and goodbye.